If your spiritual process has made you more confused instead of more peaceful, nothing actually went wrong. This video is about the 3 phases most people go through and why phase 3 is usually misunderstood. At some point, and you can't always say when, something shifts in how you see the world. Nothing around you has changed. Your life, your job, the people around you, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. It's not that life becomes different. It's more that you start noticing it from a small distance. Your thoughts and habits are still there, but something in you is no longer completely inside them. There is a kind of lightness you can't quite explain. But then, almost immediately, confusions follow. Because you start seeing things you weren't seeing before. You may be at work, in the middle of a conversation, and it starts to feel like you're watching yourself play a role. The words sound rehearsed. The reaction of the people around you, and even yours, feel automatic. Or you are going through your day, and things that used to feel normal now feel hollow. It feels like you are not fully inside your own life. So, at times, you even wonder if something is wrong with you. You are more aware than before, but you have no idea how to live from this new place. You can't just move through your day the way you used to. You can't unsee what you see. Now, everything seems to ask for meaning, but nothing around you really gives it. For many people, there is no one they can really talk about this. If you try to explain it, you sound dramatic, or confused, or even ungrateful. So you keep it to yourself. And that's when the real question appears. If I can't go back to who I was, but I don't know who I'm becoming, what do I do now? That's when the search begins. When you start searching, it's like a dam breaks. You are suddenly consuming everything you can find. You start to read books on spirituality, religion, psychology. You get into meditation. You explore consciousness, shadow work, trauma. All things you would have never imagined touching or even being interested in before. And every single one feels like it's directly speaking to you. Finally, there is someone naming what you have been feeling. Finally, there is words for this. And you are not searching casually here. No, this is actually urgent. There is a thirst to know more, to go deeper. And at some point in time, through this intense inquiry, you start to find your own path. This is when usually guidance starts to show up, through a method that deeply resonates with you, or a community where people go through the same thing that you are. For the first time in a very long time, you don't feel alone. What you're going through starts to make sense. There is a language for it now. Before, moving forward felt like walking with eyes closed. That's not the case anymore. Now, you finally have a direction to follow. And this is not just in your head. You can feel starting to change your day-to-day life. You are more aware of what's happening inside you. You are less carried away by your thoughts. Other people's opinions don't bother you as much as before. There is a growing distance between you and what's happening inside. And it's uncomfortable at times, but it feels true. And this is also when you start to realize that this new experience of life is not only precious, but fragile. So you want to protect it. You naturally become more attentive to what you expose yourself to. You become more disciplined, more aligned with your actions. Over time, you start to see what drains you and what keeps you clear. For many people, this is the first time they feel this level of freedom. And then, without any warnings, something starts to crack. There comes a critical moment in your spiritual journey when what once held you no longer holds you. You still meditate or you pray, but it's flat. The teachings that once felt alive now feel familiar, repetitive. And slowly, a different kind of confusion appears. Not the innocent confusion of not knowing like in phase 1, but the confusion of knowing and still not being free. This is the part most people don't talk about. I remember when this happened to me. I had just come back to my hometown after spending 2 years in an ashram in India. 2 years of intense yoga and meditation, learning to sit with myself, to witness my thoughts. I genuinely felt ready to return to the world, like I had gathered all what I needed. And in the beginning, everything was fine. I could still meditate easily. I was still able to keep my focus on what mattered. But after some time, something started to feel off. My practices were still there, but they didn't land in the same way. And I didn't know how to turn all this inner work into something that made sense in this outside world. And when I say turning into something, I don't mean spiritually. I mean practically. How do you talk to someone about their weekends when you have been silent for 2 years? How do you care about things that suddenly feel hollow? How do you build a life when the whole goals don't make sense anymore? And that's exactly when I started to doubt. I began wondering if I had done something wrong along the way. Because if all this work was supposed to free me, why could I stay grounded? Why wasn't truth enough? It felt like being stuck between two worlds, the one I left behind years ago and the one I thought I had reached permanently. And honestly, I didn't know how to live in either. I stayed there for a long time, more than a year actually, and mostly alone because I couldn't explain what I was going through without sounding lost, which is exactly what I didn't want to admit. And this is what I didn't understand back then, because this is where the story you told yourself start to break. You notice that you're still the same person in many ways. You still get irritated, lonely, insecure at times. You begin to notice the cost of seeing clearly in a world that doesn't ask you to. Now, that same clarity creates friction at your work, in your relationship. All the efforts and sacrifices you made only made sense if it was leading somewhere. Somewhere where you will finally be at peace, where you will be free from the old struggles. Up until now, don't things felt like they were problems from the past? You were awake now, so you were supposed to have enough distance, enough clarity to not fall back into them. And that's when something shifts. Because now you're not just confused, you are left with more uncertainty, but at the same time, more responsibility. And that's when all this awareness that once felt like a gift start to feel heavy. You even start wondering if you were better off before. And there is a kind of shame around that thought. This is a painful moment many people hit, and even the ones who did everything right. Nothing dramatic is happening on the outside, but inside, something feels off. This is also a moment when something becomes clear. It's not that you failed. It's not that you did something wrong. It's that the promise itself was flawed. What actually breaks isn't you. It's the idea you had about awakening. The expectation that peace was a permanent reward waiting at the end of the road. Part of you thought that life will eventually settle, and realizing that it doesn't, that hurts. What remains is much simpler than you imagine. Life looks mostly the same. You're still yourself, with patterns, with personalities that didn't magically disappear. The difference is subtler and harder at the same time. Now, you're aware of all of it, and you have to live with what you see. Because you realize how much easier ignorance was. You could just believe your thoughts, react without watching yourself, follow the script without knowing there was a script. And now you can't. Not because you are better than you were before, but because you see. And once you see, You can't unsee it. You can't go back to not knowing. You just can't hide behind it anymore. So like we were saying, it's easy to think that something went wrong. But in reality, you actually didn't fail. You didn't miss something. You simply outgrew a stage. This phase marked the shift from spiritual adolescence to adulthood. And what comes after is much quieter. You see, spiritual adolescence needs fantasy, hope, or a clear identity to hold on to. Adulthood doesn't. That's why this phase can feel like a loss. What really fell away wasn't your depth, but rather the image you had of how this was supposed to look. This is where many people draw the wrong conclusion. The early stages tend to be louder because they need constant reinforcement. But the most visible expression of spirituality aren't always the most mature ones. You don't need to look or sound spiritual to feel what's true anymore. And from the outside, this can look like something went wrong. But in reality, you just have less to say because there is just less to prove. This isn't your life collapsing. What falls apart here is a sandcastle you built. And what left is something much more simpler. Not impressive, not shiny, true, but something that actually holds. And this is where something real can begin. You still go to work. You still have habits and routines. You wake up. You eat. Life looks the same. But you're not performing anymore. You're not trying to look awakened. You're not trying to sound deep. You're just living. And from the outside, it may not look spiritual at all. And that's okay. Because you're not doing this for the outside anymore. You're just here. And somehow, that's enough.